America is not a racist country.
Homelessness in America is really taking a turn for the worse. And unfortunately, you have a sitting president. His interest is in people that live abroad and not interested enough in the people that are here and really truly need a lot of help. Ladies and gentlemen, the most evicted person in America are Black women. And the crisis is actually getting worse. Now, a lot of these are working women, but rent in America has gone up over 33% within the last year. And people that could afford their rent before just can't afford it now with the inflation going through the roof. And I got another video that's coming out where the White House is sending out a warning that the inflation is about to get worse. So, the Greenside house with a manicured lawn and juniper trees was more of a home. And this is Nicole Chambers. It was proof that she was a good woman, a good nurse, a good mother. The eviction order she found cruelly silent on her dark green laminated countertop signaled that she was about to lose the life she had worked so hard to build. Her sons text her a photo of it when they found it taped to the red storm door the afternoon, but part of her didn't want to believe it was true. The hair on the back of her neck stood up. Her feet were heavy on the wood floor. Her mouth was dry. How could everything unravel so quickly, she thought. Chambers' troubles began when she lost her nursing contract several weeks earlier, days before rent was due. A week later, Chambers asked her landlord for 4 more days to pay the rent. She felt it was a fair request. The 44-year-old nurse assistant said she paid her $2,490 monthly rent for 4 years without incident. She always took care of the house, putting any extra cash towards refreshing the paint or decorating. And her landlord knew how hard she had been working. Okay, so she works, it looks like, at a nursing home. So, and you know how hard hit they were during the pandemic. But the letter in her hand stated that she had 60 days to find a new place. Several months later, the mother of three was living in the only apartment she was able to find with a fresh eviction on her record, and this was in North Seattle. It had no heat, no hot water in one of the bathrooms, and no yard. I've worked my all my life and I've raised my kids alone with no help, no child support, and now I have lost everything, Chambers said. Chambers is far from the only Black woman whose life was upended after a landlord quickly pursued eviction. Black women are more likely than any other group to be evicted, according to USA Today. Analysis 4 years of local and national housing records and data from the University of California, Berkeley. Black women renters get filed against at twice the rate of white women renters nationwide. King County in Washington state has one of the highest eviction rates filing for Black women. Landlords file against Black women at 5 times the rate of white renters. in some cases over less than $10 in back rent. That's outrageous. So if somebody owes $10 in back rent, you evict them? Wow. Wow. And I don't know why this landlord couldn't just work with her. If she was there and was never late on the rent for 4 years in a row, the one time when she needed a little more time and they just threw an eviction notice at her, wow, that's pretty cold. For Black women like Chambers, an illness, car trouble, noisy children, hours cut at work, or losing a job altogether could easily become grounds for eviction. Experts warn the pandemic is not fading. These people are so disingenuous. They really are. That's why it's hard to watch or listen to news in America. This pandemic is not fading. So anyway, this is what they're claiming. Protections may cause an avalanche of evictions in the coming months. It is highly likely Black women will once again suffer the most. It's always been the case that evictions turn family lives upside down and make it even harder for families to find safe, stable homes in the future. These devastating effects fall disproportionately on Black and Brown women and children. Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio, chairman of the U.S. Senate Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs. Other findings. So, this is more findings after USA Today investigated. In King County, Washington, Black women accounted for 16% of the evictions, while making up only 5% of the renter population. Eviction proceedings are likely formalities, even if the tenant owes rent and can come up with the money. Hearings often last minutes, and tenants are rarely given relief. It takes 3 weeks on average to get an eviction in Washington state. Among the top evictors in King County were corporate landlords who received subsidies and tax breaks for affordable housing. Many tenants who receive eviction notices abandon their homes without challenging the eviction, often because they don't know how to do so. When they don't respond or show up to court, this leads to what is called a default judgment in favor of the landlord, meaning tenants have days to vacate the property. Of the King County filings review by USA Today resulted 44% in a default judgment. Black women's vulnerability to eviction starts long before they sign a lease. Black women are more likely to be single parents and listed as leaseholders. Black women have the highest probability of being given citations from the police, which can result in an eviction. They earn on average less than other demographics. These factors are driven in large part by structural racism. Many studies concluded that Black women are judged more harshly in school, the workplace, and the court system. The result is generations of Black women struggling to keep roofs over their heads, falling further behind in systemic wealth gap, and being put at higher risk of ending up homeless, in prison, or dead. And that's all the more reason why we should be getting our reparations. Okay? We didn't do many of these things on our own. Your system did a lot of these things to us. You can't rig up a system and then point fingers at somebody. But that's what y'all have historically have done. So, women and children experiencing housing insecurity and homelessness are more prone to adverse health problems, including maternity, mortality, hypertension, arthritis, mental health, tuberculosis, substance abuse, victimization, and unsafe sexual practices, as well as criminal activity and barriers to education and employment. So this kind of disparity doesn't happen by chance. Diane Yentl, CEO and president of the National Low Income Housing Coalition in Washington, D.C. Imagine you miss a rent payment. Now you could lose your home in less than a month. All right. Chambers had bills, car payments, insurance, utilities, and three cell phones. Her sons were eating more, you know, because the schools were closed during the lockdown. To find a new place, she needed to pay first and last month rent, a security deposit, meaning Chambers could be cobbled together nearly $7,000 and was already starting at a deficit. Chambers didn't have savings. Nearly 3 in 5 Americans report having less than $5,000 in savings to cover an emergency. She struggled to find a job. Many assisted living facilities didn't want to hire new nurses and preferred to keep staffing low because of the high risk during the pandemic. Chambers was among millions of women taken out of the workforce after the onset of the pandemic because of quarantine measures and other economic disruptions. The massive loss of jobs saw the highest number of Black women unemployed in 40 years. Months later, after finding a new contract with limited hours and a much lower income, it was too late. Chambers' landlord still wanted her out. Chambers received text messages from her landlord twice a week. You're going to ruin my credit. I'm going to therapy because you're making me depressed. During the first 2 years of the pandemic, the halt in residential evictions ordered by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention was intended to keep about 40 million people, such as Chambers, safely housed. But there were loopholes. And see, this is the government's fault for not taking care of those loopholes. Even if you didn't realize it in the beginning, you had ample time to do something about the loopholes, and they still haven't done a thing. Like I said, got more concerned about what's going on thousands of miles away than what's going on right in their backyard. Chambers' landlord could evict her if they intended to sell the property. That was one of the only ways owners could circumvent the patchwork of national and local preventions in King County and Washington state. Long before the pandemic, the eviction system was designed to be fast, cheap, and easy for landlords, not tenants. In Seattle, if tenants want to contest an eviction, they have to send a letter via fax or USPS mail. They might want to gather supporting documents to make photocopies, eating away more time. All of this can mean missing work to respond to a summons. Without a hearing, they forfeit any chance of staying in their homes. In most states, tenants respond to an eviction summons by appearing in court for their hearing. Research has found many tenants confuse summons for eviction orders and abandon their homes. State laws in Alaska, Arizona, and North Carolina allow eviction summonses to be served to a tenant as little as 2 days before a hearing, leaving them with little time to prepare, let alone be able to take off work to show up to court. Only 6 of 39 states have specified minimum summons period requires summonses to be served more than a week before a hearing date, according to an analysis of eviction laws and procedures commissioned by Congress and executed by the federally funded Legal Services Corporation and the Center for Public Health Law Research at Temple University in Philadelphia. So the bottom line is they got it set up where you got little to no chance to really fight it, you know, because you would think that this federal government, I mean, you gave what? Billions and billions over to Ukraine. And you know how many people could have been saved if that money would just come through, or you would have done something, because out of the ordinary things have happened over the past 2 years. So you can compensate the landlord, but part of the deal is let the tenant stay. I mean, they did this whole thing wrong, y'all. That's why it is just imploding. The sad part is the homeless out on the streets is just exploding across the country. I did a story yesterday on the elderly. A lot of them are ending up out on the streets. And now you got Black women that are being evicted at high rates, the highest in the country. So, I mean, it is sick what this country do as far as what they prioritize. But just watching this whole thing since February 22nd, 2022, it is very clear these folks care about no one other than themselves. If you don't look like them, they don't give a damn about you. But y'all, please tell me what you think about this story. This is sad. I'm glad she got in another place, but it doesn't seem to be that great, being that she has no yard, no hot water. I mean, this is a travesty all the way around. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. And I want y'all to remember something. Black women are some of the biggest voters in this country. And do you see how they fail to protect you when you really need something to come through? So the biggest voting block of Black women are the most neglected when it comes down to evictions. That says a lot about America. Peace.